Om Ganana Tva Ganapatigam Mavamahe Kavim Kavinam Vamashravastamam Jeshtajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspada Anashrinvan Nodivisi Sadanam Shimaha Ganapataye Namaha Prano Devi Saraswati Vaje Bhirvajinivati Dhinam Avitrevatu Maha Saraswati Namaha Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Brahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Sarvalokanam Vishije Bhavaroginam Nideye Sarva Vidyanam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Namaha स्मिन्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः देवीं वाचमजनयन्त देवाः तां विश्वरूपा पशवो वदन्ति सा नो मन्दिरेषु मूर्जन्दुहाना धेनुर्वागस्मानुपतिष्ठितैतु व्यासं वसिष्ठनप्तारं शक्तेः पौत्रमकल्मषं पराशरात्मजं वन्दे शुकतातं तपोनिधिं व्यासाय विष्णुरूपाय व्यासरूपाय विष्णवे नमो वै ब्रह्मनिधये वासिष्ठाय नमो नमः श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः शिवशक्तिसमारम्भां भास्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मत्श्रीनाथपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां श्रीललिता महात्रिपुरसुन्दरी समेत श्रीचन्द्रमौळीश्वराय नमः श्रीकाञ्चीकामकोटिपीठाधिपति जगद्गुरु श्रीशङ्कराचार्य श्रीचरणयोः प्रणामाः स्वस्ति श्रीमदखिलभूमण्डलालङ्कारत्रयस्त्रिंशत्कोटिदेवता सेवित श्रीकामाक्षी देवी सनाथ श्रीमदे काम्रनाथ श्रीमहादेवी सनाथ श्रीहस्तगिरिनाथ साक्षात्कार परमाधिष्ठान सत्यव्रतनामाङ्कित काञ्ची दिव्यक्षेत्रे शारदा मठसुस्थितानाम् अतुलितसुधारसमाधुर्य कमलासनकामिनी धम्मिल्ल सम्फुल्ल मल्लिका मालिका निष्यन्त मकरन्दजरि सौवस्तिक वाङ्निकुम्भ विजृम्भणानन्द तुन्दुलितिमनीषिमण्डलानाम् अनवरताद्वैतविद्याविनोदरसिकानां निरन्तरालङ्कृतीकृतशान्तितान्तिभूम्नां सकलभुवनचक्रप्रतिष्ठापक श्रीचक्रप्रतिष्ठाविख्यात यशोऽलङ्कृतानां निखिलपाषण्डषण्डकण्टकोद्घाटनेन विशदीकृतवेदवेदान्तमार्गशन्मतप्रतिष्ठापकाचार्याणां श्रीमत्परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्यवर्य श्री जगद्गुरु श्रीमच्छंकर भगवत्पादाचार्याणाम् अधिष्ठाने सिंहासनाभिषिक्त श्रीमच्चंद्रशेखरेन्द्र सरस्वती संयमीन्द्राणाम् अधिष्ठाने सिंहासनाभिषिक्त श्रीमज्जयेन्द्र सरस्वती संयमीन्द्राणाम् अन्तेवासिवर्य श्रीमच्छंकर विजयेन्द्र सरस्वती श्रीपादानां च चरणनलिनयोः सप्रश्रियं साञ्जलिबन्धं च नमस्कुर्मः. So hope your new year was pretty good. Celebration.
Yes, we were in Nairobi.
Yeah. So congratulations on a very good, successful trip.
Yes, that's great.
I could see some of the picture on your display profile. So sounded a very happy occasion. Yeah. Pretty good.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I don't know whether you had an opportunity to watch the YouTube videos. But we are currently in Mundaka Upanishad, the third Mundaka, first Khanda, and mantra number 3. We finished mantra number 2 last time, which primarily was saying that, being seated on the same tree, the Purusha deluded grieves over his helplessness, but when he holds the other worshipful Lord and his glory, he becomes free from all the grief. So delusion is because of the ignorance and false identification. So I will go to the mantra number 3. I hope you have the script because I had already shared it last time. Mantra number 3 is Yada Pashyah Pashyate Rukma Varna Kartaramesham Purusham Brahmayonim. Yada Pashyah Pashyate Rukma Varnai Kartaramesham Purusham Brahmayonim. Tada Vidwan Punya Pape Vidhuya Niranjanah Paramam Samyamupaiti. Tada Vidwan Punya Pape Vidhuya Niranjanah Paramam Samyamupaiti. So, getting into the literal meaning. Yada means when. Pashyah means the seer, SWR. or the wise. Seer is also another word for the wise men, the learned men. Rukma Varnam means of golden color. Kartaram is the creator. Brahma Yonim, the progenitor of Brahma. The progenitor of Brahma. Isham is referencing the Lord. Purusham is the supreme being. Pashyate, sees, means with the eyes, sees. Tada, then. Vidwan, obviously, we all know the meaning, the learned, the wise man. Punya pape, the virtue and sin. Punya is virtue, pape is sin. Vidhuya, having cast off. Cast off, C-A-S-T, cast off, remove. Niranjanaha, the stainless. This is not equal to the stainless steel that you all know. The stainless is without any blot or without any stains. Paramam, the supreme. Samyam, unity. Upaiti, attains. So in summary, it says that when the seer realizes that effulgent supreme being, the creator, the Lord and the progenitor of Brahma, then that wisest, the person who is learned, having cast off all sin and virtue, attains to that supreme stainless unity. So when we are talking of casting off, casting off, etc., the reference is to when the knowledge of the real self. The whole exercise is all about exploring self and understanding self. So when the knowledge of the real self is attained, one comes to realize that the sin, the virtue, etc., the papa punya, which we keep talking about, हमें पाप मिलेगा, पुण्य कमाते हैं, पाप कमाते हैं, या all of these things are things of the mind and the body. They do not belong to the spirit or the soul. Take a moment to sink this information in. If you take this meaning in the real literal English, it won't be an impactful statement. वो तो ठीक है, पता है, like I know, so what's new about it? Take an extra time and sink this information in. Because we have a habit of saying, if you earn so much of sin, हमारी आत्मा भटकती रहेगी. So this whole business of everything translating to the spirit is due to lack of ignorance, lack of knowledge. So the whole concept of pap, punya, etc. is only related to the things of the mind and the body, not the soul, not the spirit. They do not belong to the spirit. So when we talk of supreme unity, the vision of all the duality melts away. Very, very profound statement. The vision of the knowledge of God is some two-handed, two-legged person sitting there up in the clouds, the way we have been taught right from childhood, that whole concept of duality, that God is separate, we are separate, we are humans, he is also a supreme human, more powerful than us. That whole concept of duality will melt away. You would have acquired so much of knowledge that will break all the barriers of Maya or the illusion that you have been living in. And you become one of the wise men. By virtue of that knowledge, you become wise. And in the process, you merge with the Brahman. Now, I have repeatedly given a disclaimer that there are several schools of philosophy. And in some schools, this whole definition of merging is handled slightly differently. But for the sake of simplicity, if we just take one school of philosophy, which is Advaita, you will understand this whole concept of non-duality, where you merge with the supreme human or the Brahman. So the Jivatma Paramatma concept need to be understood. Oh, she dropped off. So any doubt on this right now? You're on mute. You're on mute. Yeah. But again, I would caution that if you take the, if she's going to join back, let's see what's wrong. Whether there's any power cut or internet drop. She's going to log back using the phone. వీటిగారు తిరిగి వందచ్చా లాంగ్ ప్రాజెక్టా వాట్ యూనివర్సిటీ Oh, okay.
It's a big university for 1,500 students. Just very scattered, so we went there to just capture everything and put it in the mix.
So he's teaching or
No, construction of the university.
Construction of the
And
university.
also academic block and all those things.
Okay.
Because last year they got the AICT certificate. Other for one worship they have to start the classes. And they could start the classes in September. At a bare minimum order, but the other things
Got it.
they are telling our share is to May.
So I'll instead of just waiting, I'll revise some of the things that we have understood about the gunas. Right. So we start with the concept of Brahman or the eternal conscious existence. And in Brahman, there exists the principle of Maya. You remember all the Ishvara, Hiranyagarbha flow. So in Brahman, there exists the principle of Maya, or what we call as the causal matter. It is also referred to as Mula Ajnanam, Mula Avidya, and Mula Prakriti. Mula Prakriti. So it is not a material substance, but a subtle agent by which Brahman is seemingly conditioned. There she is.
So sorry about that.
No, that's okay. Yeah, so we just started 10 seconds ago. So I'll repeat what I shared.
Oh, bless.
I hope the meaning of the mantra is clear. And I went back to doing a quick revision of what I had taught about the three gunas and the body, the connection between the three gunas and the bodies. If you recall, the gunas is, when we talk of gunas, is always associated with us as humans. It's not the right thing to say so. So, at the top is the eternal conscious existence, Brahman. And in Brahman, there exists the principle of Maya. So, you go back to the definition of Ishwar, Hiranyagarbha, how when Maya gets associated, you see the difference. So, in Brahman, there exists the principle of Maya, which we call as also the causal matter, CAUSAL, causal matter, which in different spheres of life, we would have heard about Mula Ajnanam. Mula means very core. Mula Ajnanam, that is ignorance. Mula Avidya, that means you don't have the knowledge. And Mula Prakriti. This is what is combined, called as a causal matter. So it's not a material substance, but a subtle agent by which the Brahman is seemingly conditioned. Brahman exists as it is, but it is getting conditioned, and the manifest universe is brought into being in its causal, subtle, and gross aspects. So the universe, which is evolved, is manifested in the causal, subtle, and gross aspect. That means Sthula, Sukshma, and Karana. So Brahman is also the conscious principles that makes knowing possible. So moment you use the word knowing, it means you are aware of something, and that awareness, that information that you gather, the data, and you understand and appreciate, which is what we call as a knowledge, that knowing is possible. Than the relative action of the knowing which takes place in one's antakarana. Antakarana means inner being, inner instrument. So for this process to happen, I've gone into extraordinary depths of the whole process in simple details of saying we need the manas, right? And then we need
intellect.
Correct.
Buddhi.
Correct. Then Chitta, correct. And then perfect. So you use all the senses to get the data. It's not just the eyes, just the ear or the mouth that we use talking, but also the air that we feel. If you suddenly change the air conditioning, you'll start sensing that data is also getting gathered. You respond to it. All of this multiple impression goes into sort of impressions one after the other. And then these impressions are read by the intellect. And when it gets associated with ahankara or I, the ego, it becomes your experience or knowledge. So given the same parameter, each one of you may have different experience or knowledge of the same thing. I'm saying the same thing, but each one of you can understand it differently because it'll all again go back to benchmarking with your personal experience. So I can just say one thing: oh, that man was so rude, or that man was so bad. I have just used the word rude and bad. But then you will start connecting it and translating it the way you understand a rude man or a bad man. And that intensity and the scope of that understanding could differ based on personal experiences. So, Maya is an inert matter, right? Maya is not something that you can physically see, is the principle of ignorance. Maya is the principle of ignorance from your standpoint, from a standpoint of individual, because it prevents the antakarana from understanding the true identity of the Brahman. You keep talking about it, you keep reading about it, but then there's still that gap between you and the Brahman or the real Brahman, because this causal matter binds you into being in a state of ignorance. You are being told again and again that what you're seeing is Maya. What you're seeing is Maya. You'll say, yeah. Keep going. I'm with you. Because this impression of
So there's no other choice. We have to do that only, no?
I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, so we will spend at least about 3 to 5 minutes on this, if you don't mind. When we learn something new, our ability to make progress depends on our ability to accept that new learning, process it, and internalize it. If I show you this, by just the look of it, you will say, this camera, I know it's iPhone. I can actually fool you by presenting something very similar, and you will argue with me till I show you the actual name of the manufacturer, etc. Oh, this is some new manufacturer that is coming. Will you agree? You will agree to this. But if I say that I show this and you say it's an iPhone, and I'll say, no, you're ignorant. What happens? You're waking up that ego within you. How dare you say that? What do you normally do? You go to the extent of any level to prove that what you said is true. Let me show you what I have. It's very similar. So what are you talking about? You'll go to the website to show pictures. You'll show people talking about it. You know how to defend yourself. Correct? So this process itself, I say, is limiting your ability to see the reality. Because you're so engrossed in the belief that what you know is the ultimate truth. If that exists, whatever you're learning new becomes hypothetical. Correct? The second part is when you say, I'm afraid, it's easy for you to say, give up this, give up that, etc. I'm afraid if I give up that, what will happen to me? Why don't you try something in a very small way? Form your own experience instead of saying, I'll just have to listen to this man and believe it. So if you split the process of learning and internalizing something as two parts, be a good listener, don't be judgmental, don't dismiss things. So if somebody says, no, this is not an iPhone, you say, yeah, maybe. The day you open up your mind to that possibility, you're opening up yourself for new learning and new experience and new acceptance. The more you defend that, no, what I know is the truth, you're just fooling me around, then the knowledge or learning process stops. I can give you hundreds of examples. And the reason for that is when you are a child, when you're starting to learn things, go back to how you learned it or how you teach. If you don't remember how you learned it because you say, I was an infant at the time, go back to how you are teaching your newborn. You will show this is an apple. That shape of the fruit, the fact it is called a fruit, categorized as a fruit, the shape of it, the color of it, the texture, everything gets stored in memory. So if your brain is divided into two parts, one part is a database, and the other half is where the processing happens. So all of this input through the ear, through the eye, through the hand, the sense of touch, all the 5 sensory organs combined gets processed. Oh, apple means this shape, this color, this feel. And then the taste. You bite it and you see it tastes like that. So next time if you see a similar object, the brain actually takes the data from your eyes, ears, taste, etc. and hand and puts a query. Those of you who are information technology people will know it's a SQL query that it puts into the database. Tell me what this is. And all of this happens in such short duration that you take things for granted. Now, if you go back to split the basic process of learning into detail, it depends on what? It depends on what you can see. It depends on what you can touch, what you can feel. In today's world, I can do a same thing using 3D printing. Do you think it will be an apple? I don't think it will be an apple. And you're not going to wait for biting everything and saying whether it is apple or not. It's impractical, right? No, every time I see an apple to confirm whether it is apple or not, I'll bite and see. No, you're not going to do that. So I can leverage on that shortcoming and say, hey, this is an apple. You have no choice there to say, yes, it is an apple. But the day you believe that I don't have all the data to say for sure that this is an apple, there's possibility something else, then you open up your mind for new learning. And when you open up your mind for new learning, you take care of the aspect of fear, which means you're confident. I'm very open to learning new things. I've kept that ability to process the new learning and to internalize it in my system. And slowly you will come to the conclusion and the maturity that saying, okay, you'll start using the term, this could be an iPhone. Your language changes. This could be an iPhone. Because then you're accepting the limitation as a human being, that everything that I depend on and I conclude is based on these just 5 senses and the information in the database. Another example, I've seen people, when we do Punya Vachanam, they don't believe, they really don't believe that using that mantra of Pavamana Suktam, you can energize the water, and putting that water around in the house can clean the house. How can few drops of water clean the house? Then why do we need to wipe it clean? This is how we challenge ourselves. And it's very difficult to come out of the reality. It was so shocking for me because I was sitting as part of the Graha Shuddhi on the 13th day, the Shubham, in somebody's house. There were at least about 10 to 12 Vadhyars that were chanting the Pavana Suktam and everything. And then they said, okay, take this water and do Prokshana and do Shuddhi, Graha Shuddhi. Everything was done. And somebody who did the Prokshana took a lot of mango leaves and a lot of water and sprayed everywhere in the house. Another lady quickly came with a cloth with phenyl or whatever it is. And she started wiping all the water that was on the floor because she felt that it will be unsafe for people, they'll slip. Can you understand that limitation? She has more confidence in the phenyl and the cloth and the wiping and the antibacterial advertisement claim that the manufacturer makes than in the power of the mantra.
No, here again, I feel it is because the lack of knowledge of what to do. Like even I myself was not aware that we should not wipe on Madri.
Okay. Now dissect your sentence. We are doing it because we are afraid because of lack of knowledge. So if you dissect the sentence itself, the answer is there.
No, it's not that it's there for generations. I know it's good. Like, ಎಲ್ಲ functions, whatever rituals are done, therefore the Guru Sangha I know. But if you I don't know.
Right. So what is the path forward?
Trying to understand, like maybe reading more.
I'll give an answer. Please note it down. And next time when you say we have no choice or we are afraid, and how do we know? The answer is very simple. If you can put so much faith in the advertiser to say that is antibacterial, that kills everything so much, why can't you put faith in the power of the mantra and believe that energizing that water, spraying that energized water around the house is good enough for cleansing? If you start from there, believe in the system, right? Once you believe in the system, you will live a life according to that system, unless proven otherwise. Yeah, 1 second. Unless proven otherwise. Just change the mindset. I'm not saying be blindly following everything. You believe in the system. You believe in the person translating that system to you and say, okay, I don't have time to read all the scriptures. Somebody has read. So a wise man is telling me this. That means obviously I don't have any agenda to mislead you. I'm not going to mint money by misleading you because I'm not selling anything here. Correct? So when there is no hidden agenda, why is it so difficult to believe the statements coming from that side when you are okay to believe from the person that has got all the agenda required to make profits? You take the example of any product. Take Colgate as an example. Toothpaste. Have you ever gone to the lab and tested whether it kills all the bacteria? Never. You want to believe that, if I keep brushing it, everything is gone. If you go back to that old, she will relate to it much better. That Datan, there was no brushing. It was just chewing. It is strengthening the gums. Those people had better quality, dental quality than any one of us. So we have moved away from all the core things that we knew towards sophistication because somebody sold the sophistication to us. This is one thing that this is the barrier. This is the mental barrier that we need to break. Correct? Because the entire system relies on this concept. So unless you believe in the concept, you will not learn it, you will not perfect it, and you will not get into the level to say, yes, the system works. Make sense? Now, if I tell you there is a mantra that by which you can actually make the rain move away from the city where it is pouring dogs and cats, you can make the rain move. You will say, how is it possible? Are you kidding me? Mahapariva has demonstrated it. And I have seen it myself when I was part of the Atirudram in Maryland. It was very scary to be in that room. It's not a very small room, it is a massive hall. It was very scary. All the Gana particles who were about to go to the Yagashala area for food, they got up on the stage again and they started chanting. So everything cannot be proved with evidence, and tied back to that whole concept. You have to accept that limitation, that everything that I judge, everything that I'm willing to accept or reject is all based on the judgment. Judgment means I compare benchmark with what I think I know with what somebody is saying and say, no, what you're saying is not true. That battle is what is making it difficult for you. Whereas I have simplified one thing in my life. I know for sure that Vedas is not written by an author. Vedas is not written by somebody with an agenda that I'm going to fool Kumar. So when I know that, I accept whatever is in there. I will challenge the translation. But if 100 people, wise men, translate it in the same way, they all say there is a Brahman, there is a supreme human being. This is the process of merging. It is better. Don't say I don't have a choice. It is better that you start accepting that as the reality. And say, okay, now if I accept it, how do I pursue that path? You have to let go of that I know. I'm willing to go follow the path. This is the switch that is required for you to even experience or figure out that there is something different than what you know. So I'll repeat it again for a moment. I've been holding her off for a long time. Yeah, Sonalji, go ahead.
Good. And I think to find priests who explain the reason for the type of ritual that they do, it's not like, because they sometimes, in fact, even the priests use a lot of ego to show off what they know, and they, chanting and so on, try to do real fast chanting, and they don't, in my experience, they don't explain. So, for example, if this lady was throwing the water, if she could have just been told, okay, don't splash so much that somebody will slip, but just put little amounts, then it will serve both purposes. But priests don't explain that, and then that's where we have the fear, because we don't know what's right, we don't know what's wrong, and then of course judgment comes.
I will give a suggestion. Again, don't take everything at face value. And please listen. The most important part, forget about the word antakarna and all that stuff. I can repeat it again. You are attending this class because you want to really know what is the difference that I'm missing, correct? I'm giving you those small tips today. Start with the first concept that somebody who has read more, understood more, is sharing something without an agenda, which means obviously there is something in that path for me to follow. Because you're talking of realization, I cannot teach you how to realize, correct? That is the process that you need to understand. So if you don't take that turnpike north or south for the destination that you're looking for, if you don't set out on the journey, if you're going to rely on Google Maps, I can tell you Apple Maps. Apple Maps will tell you there is a lot of traffic in this route. Google Maps will say, no problem, you please go. What do? So you have more faith on Tim Cook and Sundar Pichai than that Supreme God. That doesn't gel well, because you don't have enough evidence that both these gentlemen are speaking the truth, because both are CEOs of profit-making company. Each one will try to push his agenda. Nothing wrong. We are living in a commercial world. So why are we so obsessed with believing in them than believing in there is no agenda. Vedas is free for everybody, right? Mundaka Upanishad is free. Nobody is charging you money and making profit to sell what they want to sell you. But why don't we believe in that? This is the first question that each one of us should ask. Just by reading Mundaka Upanishad, you are not going to get brainwashed. That, I've earned so much hard-earned money of $1 million in my bank. If I get brainwashed with this system or reading this, I'm going to lose everything that I want. That is the fear that probably prohibits people from even listening to certain things, right? So now to answer your question, let me answer her question quickly and then I'll get back to you. You are giving perception from your side as a devotee, right? I can say for sure one thing. When I've been on this side of the story, if I have to chant Rudram in one go, that's a simple harmonic that I need to create in order for the desired effect. If I intersperse that with a lot of lecturing, the way I'm doing it right now, you have defeated the purpose. So it's one thing that you can understand. You have a valid point. I'm not dismissing what you're saying, but we have to be open-minded to say, is there a different way to achieve our objective? So let puja be the purpose for which it is intended. Let the Vadyars continue to do what they're doing, the chantings. Instead of everybody sitting and gossiping and socializing there, how about letting the mantras do their job? Release the pressure on the priests. Let them do what they are doing. You follow what you're asked to do. Keep the process of knowledge or education offline. It can happen after the event is done. For example, classes like this, you learn. It doesn't have to be learning on that day, on that moment, at that location. And I'm saying this because these days it has become a very standard practice to start giving lectures about what our system is in the middle of a wedding. This is like a running commentary, as if like there is a cricket match going on there, and parallelly somebody will hold the mic and they feel that they are the master of ceremonies. It's pathetic. It's not required. Because whether you accept the person who is explaining the whole process or not, the marriage is not going to stop. The priest has got a job. He will do. There are some auspicious timings. They will do what they have to do at that time. It can go on. Whether you are able to understand something or not can also be given in a pamphlet to the extent you need to know. And if you read the pamphlet and if you don't have clarity, you can ask questions while you're having lunch. And why I am saying this, I'm not trying to be critical of innovations or new approach. What if the person who is disseminating the truth is relying on a Google search? You are misleading the whole set of people. Not only you're causing distraction in the whole process of the wedding, but you're misleading a whole bunch of people. So information dissemination is a more bigger responsibility than even listening to somebody and acquiring knowledge. I must be very careful of what I'm sharing with you. I cannot do just Google search 5 minutes before the class and start reading out from that. That will be the most, I would say, dangerous thing to do. Because this knowledge that you acquire, you are going to transmit it to somebody else, maybe your spouse or maybe your children, and it will spread. We don't want that. So rely on the source. Use these sessions to listen and say, okay, I've heard things new. Be prepared to accept it as they are, and then embark on a self-search. You do your own research. Ask questions. Challenge it from 3, 4, 5 different angles. Validate for yourself. Come back, ask more questions. That is the process of learning. Number one. Even in school, when you're taught science, they don't just restrict themselves to theory in the classroom. There is always a concept of lab. Why? Because you need to apply the knowledge that you think you have learned in a practical environment where you're going to do the remainder of the learning. So why not follow for this process? Whatever theory you're learning, try to apply it in a very limited sense and remove that whole concept of judgment. We are limiting ourselves by saying, I already know this fellow is telling me this, I don't think what he's saying is right. Imagine you go to Paramacharya and you start testing him. Mahapariva, tell me what this is. And if he says something, you say, oh, maybe Mahapariva doesn't know what he's talking about. Right? Don't react. There are people who have done it. Not one, in thousands. You know the example of the French guy who came with the BMW, right? He came to convince Mahapariva. He came to convince Mahapariva, saying that this whole concept of rebirth, soul, or karma is all absolute fake thing. Knowing who Mahapariva is, he didn't ever have to wait for all the questions to come in from why he's asking those questions. The first shocking statement for him was when Periva asked him, oh, you're coming a BMW, right? So you must be a wealthy man. Yes, sir. What has that got to do with my question? He says, just hang in there. Don't be in a rush. And he gave that person an exercise. Please stay back because you don't have faith in me. So you should not wait for an answer from me. Realize, experience yourself, whatever you want to call it as. And he gave him a simple project. To the entire, go visit all the hospitals in Kanchipuram. Study, take notes of everything, collect data. All these people are good, no? Evidence-based, statistical evidence and analysis. So he went to every hospital and he collected data of all the children or the babies that were born in the last 1 month. He said, sir, I've done. This is great. Now go and find out where those infants are. And he gave him a bunch of parameters. Not a big deal. He went and found out where those babies are. The chart data, everything was ready. And Periva asked him only one question. Did all those 50 babies came into this world, into the same hospital, through the same doctor, the same process? Yes. So then why one baby is now in a poor hut without food, the other baby is filled with luxury? Why? He didn't have any answer. He just fell at his feet and said, I'm sorry. So it is very easy to get carried away. And take the example of Colgate toothpaste. I mean, it's a very funny thing. Indians will realize it much better than anybody else. Colgate mocked the concept of charcoal and datun when we were born. They told you that you are so uncouth and unsophisticated because you are using datun and charcoal to brush your teeth. Look at this great paste that works a miracle. And 50 years later, they're selling the same Colgate toothpaste, saying that please use this toothpaste because it has got charcoal in it. Do you need any more evidence? I am not trashing science. Science gives you convincing evidence, the way you believe you understand it. But you forget that the whole system of judging or benchmarking itself has come through that process, limited to 5 senses. So unless you are willing to accept that there is thing beyond the 5 senses, right? Unless you want to accept that there is things beyond science per se, that is why it is called faith. You put faith that there is something beyond that. So if you try to tell me that everything is science, then why is science having no answer to thousands of things? They still don't know. Trillions of dollars, not millions, trillions of dollars trying to find why Alzheimer is happening. Nobody knows. So why should we have such extraordinary faith in that system only? Why not in this? That is a question that you need to answer. If you are willing to accept it, then your fear will go away. And that is what Mahapariva tried to teach many people. Leave Murungakai or leave sort of a bitter gourd or anything else, or coffee for that matter, is to teach you the concept of that I can live without this. Yeah, go ahead. You're wanting to ask something for a long time.
No, actually, here when I said that we have no choice, we are accepting that there is a Brahman that is beyond us. We are accepting it. But now, to break that wall of Maya, we are trying to read all these scriptures. Like
Correct.
many Upanishads, is finally coming to the same thing. Although in different ways, it is saying the Brahman is the supreme. It is unaffected by everything, and we are or to say we have to try to understand it, or we have to try to understand that we are the Brahman. That's the
Yes.
So, okay, many times I wonder when I read the Upanishad or anything, what I'm supposed to concentrate on to either the lines, the words.
No, not the words.
Mantras,
No, not the words. Not the words. Not the mantra. Mantra. See, look at mantra not as something to remember and stress yourself. How did you form all these sentences that you spoke in the last 30 seconds? Because you learned sometime in your childhood how to form English sentences to express yourself. So start looking at mantras as a bunch of sentences that is used to communicate to you a concept. So focus on the concept. The extent to which you need to know the terminology is only to the extent for you to understand the concept or to explain to somebody when they ask you a question. Right? For example, if I know how to do tarpanam, I know the mantras for tarpanam. I know exactly when to put the water through this tip of the finger, when to put it like this, when to put it like this. If I know the process, that is important. I don't need to memorize Prachina Viti, Upaviti, all those things. As long as I know that I have to do left and right when I have to do what I have to do, that is more important than the technicality. So you de-stress from saying, okay, how do I remember all this? It is possible. Because the beauty of the brain is you're hardly using 0.0001% of the capacity of the brain. You have to test your brain to the limit. You start reading it. First thing is the belief. Once you have belief in something, you will remember it. The whole process of keeping it in memory, I keep forgetting it. It's so difficult. It's only because, again, there is a mental barrier. I'm reading it because I have to read it. Change that mindset. I mean, I'm not trying to pick on the word. I'm truly telling you that change the mindset. I have all the choices in the world. This is important to me because this is giving me the roadmap or the guide to my destination. When I will reach the destination, whether I will, or you remove all those things. Follow the path. It's not putting you in a path of harm's way. It's not putting you in a path of, brainwashed bhatakna, like you just drop everything and you go tomorrow. Because that is also part of learning. Everything is answered. You have the knowledge, but you are afraid to put that in the right sequence and say, okay, now I know it. Just because I'm acquiring all this knowledge, it doesn't mean tomorrow I'm going to wear a saffron clad and drop everything irresponsibly and go. You know that. So when you know that, you don't have to be afraid of acquiring more knowledge. Because if you say that you are acquiring more knowledge through all the translation of the scriptures in the Upanishads, etc., you start practicing. Doing tarpanam or doing archana is not something that is going to be causing you fear, right? If I do that, what will happen to my social responsibility? That is where you have to use your knowledge and experience to say, okay, I'm spending so much time on WhatsApp, I can cut down. You save time from all that and apply time for this and put that plan in a smart way. As you age and as you reach a particular age, how you can increase this aspect of spending so much time on japa, archana, puja, etc., and create that energy within you. I don't want to use any personal experience. Yesterday, I met my childhood friend. That lady has gone through many things in life. It is very shocking to see the calmness with which she speaks, the clarity with which she speaks. She lost her husband in COVID. She was also admitted to the hospital side by side. She came back home alive. Husband is gone. There is a level of calmness. And she said she has told her kids also, if it was to happen, it has happened. Move on. So with knowledge, your ability to process new information is improved. But if you keep getting stuck to that maya, no, I don't think it is right. I don't think it is right. If I go that path, it is going to be messy for me. Till you keep that fear in you, this progress will be very limited. And I give the example of automobile. You try driving on a highway with doubt in your mind. What happens if I crash? What happens if I die at 65? And you start driving at 15. When I say 15, the speed limits in UK is all kilometers per hour and here it's miles per hour. So you can correspondingly multiply it. If you're supposed to drive in the autobahn at about, let's say, 150 or 200 kilometers per hour, but you say, oh, don't you think that at that speed you will die? If you drive at 60, you will die. Because somebody is going to come and crash into you. Imagine that whole world is running at 160. I have friends who have been driving at 220 kilometers per hour. They're very well alive, just like you and I. So this notion of, oh, that high speed, you're very brash, you're going to crash. No, you have to be part of the system, follow a system, be a part of the system, embrace it. Only then your knowledge will improve. You get what I'm saying? So even the whole, I have given this example in my other classes also. Semanto Nayanam. I'm using the technical term. Probably, if you're not familiar, you ask me. Semanto Nayanam. We are now very used to baby showers, and I don't know where is the baby and where is the shower, but we are more comfortable with that term than the real term that we have been taught is Pumsuvanam and Semantam. Semanto Nayanam is the full word, which has been shortcut into Semantam. Many women don't even know these are two separate events. Pumsuvanam is the whole concept of putting that alamukka banyan tree milk from the fruit through this nostril and you make the lady inject the whole thing. It is supposed to be done within 4 weeks of the lady confirming that she is pregnant.
Okay.
Yes. There is a reason for it. Semanto Nayanam, which is again that porcupine, this thing which is being used to split your hair and all the way through with all the mantra ucharanas, etc. It's supposed to be done in the 8th month. Pumsuvanam is different. Semanto Nayanam is different. Purpose is different. Pumsuvanam is done only for the first child. Semantam has to be done for every child.
Okay.
Now you see how she laughed at it? Because she has been taught right from childhood. Simanta Putri means the first child. You do Simantam only for the first child. What have you done? Created a distinction between your own children. Oh, you are a Simantam Putri, you are special. Rest of all is additional. Accidentally happened. So you are accepting it. That's all matter of convenience. It's fast food concept. How can I spend twice? Who has the money and the time?
I have not seen actually anyone doing it in first month.
You go and talk to your Vadhyar now. He will tell you, yes. Then you ask him, why didn't you teach me? He will say, if I start teaching you, I will lose my business. So that is the point I was trying to come to her explanation. It's easy to ask why the priest is not explaining. They have their limitations, their challenges. The moment the priest understands your challenge, you understand the priest's challenge, the whole process will improve. Simple adjustments, right? Your question of that I must have knowledge is addressed by saying, okay, you can take it offline. You accept the priest's requirement of that he has to chant the mantras in a particular sequence and get the job done. Be patient, stop talking, don't socialize, don't create that extra sound that you normally create. You see how the end result changes. That is the openness that I'm saying. I'm not asking you to jump from Himalayas and say, okay, try what happens, whether you survive or not. Nobody is asking you to take such chances or risks. It's just that mindset. Change the mindset and see whether there is a third way, fourth way. There's something new that you can learn that you don't know. Today you learned at least a few things, if I'm not mistaken. Go validate with your Vadhyar. And it is not anything about Gujarati or Madrasi. We are all coming from the same system. Over a period of time, when people ignore learning all these things, then that knowledge is not translated through generations. And then we see the difference. Differences is in Sampradaya. Shastra is there is no difference. Whether you chant it in Shukla Yajurveda or Krishna Yajurveda, you say the same thing. Bhadram karne vishruniyama deva, Bhadram pashyet. Have you ever seen the difference between the north and south? No, the mantras are the same.
Yeah, but the way they.
So how does it matter?
It doesn't matter, but it is different. That's all I said.
It is not different. It is sung in a different way. That's it. But the mantras are the same. The simple harmonics is slightly different. The end result is the same. This is the knowledge that you need to understand and acquire. Start and put that faith there so that you can expand on the concept. There's nothing to be afraid of by going down this path. Let me put the belief in the system. Only then you can appreciate the system. So even today, after 3 Mundaka, we are going to end in about 1 minute. So I'll continue this in the next class. It's a very very valid and justified, and we can spend more time in trying to do this rather than try to go to the additional mantras, because once this question is answered, then I think it'll be easy for you. And what I will do is I will give you some offline information to both of you. I'll do a separate call, something that I don't want to keep saying it on a YouTube recorded session, or I'll call you and explain you.